as little as those interactions hurt me, because they didn't hurt me emotionally. As little as those interactions hurt me, they changed my view of human nature. Like, you get on the internet, and even if you think you're cynical, I mean, I've been through a lot in my life. I've been through Cambodia, I've been through Laos, I've been through Hong Kong. Hong Kong's a rough town too in its way, guys. You know what I mean? I've been through so much in my life. And then you get on YouTube and you have to face up to the awesome, implacable spectacle of human stupidity as never before. Even in my late 30s, even in my early 40s, all right? I am still not prepared to deal with this level of stupidity. I am still not prepared to deal with this level of mean-spiritedness. You know, the casual cruelty from people who have nothing to gain. How did you learn about stupidity? Who taught you? Who taught you how stupid people are? I don't think you learned it in a classroom. I don't think you learned it in a church basement. You know, I don't think the pastor of your church sat down with you one day and said, we're going to do a very important sermon right now. It's about stupidity. It's about something you're going to have to cope with your whole life. How did you learn about malice? How did you learn about the depths of human evil and just how cruel one person can be to another out of complete indifference? And these are cumulative: indifference and stupidity. How did you learn about these things? Right? I feel that I am part of the first generation who learned about them on the internet. No. We all had to learn. Ain't something new that just came out of nowhere, right? But most of you in the audience, you grew up with one vision of human nature being presented to you by your parents, being presented to you by teachers, maybe being presented by a religious leader if you went to church or something like that. You were given a certain view of human nature above all else by television. You watched Sesame Street and you think, this is how an adult behaves. This is how a child behaves. This is how an adult talks to a child. You're given a model of normal human intelligence. I have to say, my sense of what a normal adult's level of intelligence was, probably watching the nightly news. Like as a child, when you're a small child, do you think this person is reading a script? Like, is that as a child, is that how you respond to it? You know what I mean? Like when you get older as a child, you start to analyze these things. You know what I'm saying? You start to relate to them in a more cynical way, perhaps, right? You're given an image of a calm, rational, collected adult. This may be a contrast to your own parents, right? On the nightly news, they're talking about the atom bomb. They're talking about nuclear explosions, right? That's not how my parents talk about the atom bomb, you know, like for real. But still, you have an image of rational adulthood presented to you in this way. And then at some point, somehow, you figure out this isn't humanity at all. This isn't what my fellow human beings are like at all. And today, people discover that in the YouTube comment section, Reddit, Facebook, maybe on MySpace, right? On Twitter. You know, we have these attitudes learned in childhood. And, you know, you can tell me it's a little bit different from one family to the next. It's a little bit different from one household to the next or one school system to the next. But let's say your expectations in making YouTube videos come straight out of the classroom. Let's say your expectation is, I prepare to present my book report to the class. You're a little kid. This is my book report. I think the first book report I ever wrote was the autobiography of Barnum, P.T. Barnum from the Barnum and Bailey Circus. If not, it was the autobiography of Bailey. It was one of the two guys who founded this famous circus, the Barnum and Bailey Circus. His autobiography. And and I'll always remember there was this kid in the class. I don't know what was wrong. He didn't believe I'd read the book. It was just crazy. And like, I don't even know, like, was he, yeah, seriously, like, do you believe I didn't write this report? And he was asking me all these weird questions. Like, he's like, well, what does it say on page 10? Yeah. I should find that guy. I remember his first name. I don't remember his last name. But I could figure it out. I knew what school we were at and what year. And like, look, man, you screwed up my book report. All right. But most of us, most of the time, right, our expectation is, okay, I do this work, I gather this information, I make this presentation, I'm evaluated by the teacher. Maybe months later, I get a book report. You're aware on some level you're being judged, right? But you will never face the level of animosity, cruelty, just uncharitable assumptions and judgments from the audience that you will face, frankly, in presenting the same book report here on YouTube. Nobody teaches us formally to have charitable assumptions about other people. Nobody teaches us how to interview someone, question someone, or cross-examine someone in a way that's charitable. If English is not your first language, charity has one meaning. Charitable has another. I listened to an interview just a couple hours ago with one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement. And the interviewer was asking in the most charitable way possible, well, look, $90 million have gone missing and can't be accounted for. It was much more polite than that. It's like, well, look, your organization, the headline number is $90 million. It's been reported you purchased 4 houses. And how much money did you personally make out of this, right? But you've got to ask those questions in a charitable way. And you've got to take the answers seriously when they're given to you. You can't just dismiss them and keep on attacking the person. Or what? Right? Or what? Or what's the alternative? Right? If people can't reason with you, if you can't be reasonable, if you can't reciprocate the level of rationality and reasonableness they're generously extending to you, right? Then we revert to pretty fundamentally animal behavior. Then we revert to a situation where it is just going to be brute force that resolves the differences between us. I think that's exactly what we need formal education on, our generation. Now, I just say, I don't think the past was better than the present. Let's put it that way. I don't think my grandfather's generation or my great-grandfather's generation consisted of angels. I remember talking to an elderly Buddhist monk, and he told me that in his childhood, nobody had ever considered putting a child on a diet. Weight loss and obesity among children didn't exist. And he said they all ate garbage. They ate in an unhealthy diet in unlimited quantities. The parents didn't try to limit. And he said the reason was simple. Absolutely all of our forms of play and recreation pretty much involved physical violence. Like they were out wrestling in the dirt or, with a stick and a rock in the dirt. They were scrambling around all day and all night. So I forget how old that monk was. I don't know if that was the 1940s or what. I'm sorry, I'd have to think about when it was he grew up, right? So, this is one element of generational change. People at that time were racist. People were rude. People were ignorant. People did fight a lot. People were violent. People had all kinds of terrible defects of character. But it's also true that they had the experience of dealing with other human beings face to face and dealing with the consequences of what they've said and done. where it's like, hey, if you talk to me this way, if you treat me this way, there are going to be consequences, and there are going to be consequences for the both of us. One of the consequences may be I never trust you again. One of the consequences may be I never talk to you again. Just invidious silence. You've broken down the social relationship. Okay, but the other consequence is, as I said right at the start of this video, each and every one of these social encounters changes our own understanding of human nature. Ultimately, how we understand what it means to be human, what it means to be alive, it's a generalization based on just a certain number of case studies. We have our parents, what we think is normal. We have our teachers, we have our classmates, we have what we see on TV, right? And then for my generation, we get the jarring contrast to what we see of human nature on the internet. Right? Melissa made a video just yesterday, feels like a long time ago, talking about our relationship. And the video has more than one thesis, but the most interesting one is this. By the way, I wasn't involved in making the video. I wasn't in the apartment. So the way the video is edited, it might sound like I was really involved because my voice is in there at the beginning, but actually I had nothing to do with it. I didn't script the video. I didn't, I had nothing to do with the conceptualization or planning of this video in any way. One of the most interesting theses is that social media can be as real as you want it to be, that YouTube can be as real as you want it to be, that we can come out here and share our real lives. It can be completely fake. It can be complete fraud, right? But we have the option. You also have the option of creating narrative fiction. Don't get me wrong. Can you imagine how frustrating and discouraging it is for Melissa and I to come on the internet again and again and keep it 100% honest, keep it all the way real, and have people insisting to us that what we're presenting is instead some kind of intentional deception or fraud, and inventing in their own mind and then popularizing with others conspiracy theories that instead explain what's happening on screen as representing a totally different set of motivations, a totally different set of circumstances, right? And of course, going through your videos with a fine-tooth comb to find little bits and pieces of information or evidence that will support that thesis, no matter how ludicrous, no matter how improbable, right? So some of you have been watching my channel for a long, long time, might remember this example. But back in the day, I did make a YouTube video filmed inside of a Walmart in China. So Walmart is a big box store. They have groceries, they have clothing, they have garden gnomes. It's a very miscellaneous sort of store. I'm inside a Walmart in China, and for the amusement of my audience, I'm filming myself reacting to some unbelievably disgusting food products that are sold in China that you could never find in the United States of America. So one of the examples is duck necks. These are the severed necks of ducks. I assume there's a factory where they slaughter all these ducks, and the neck is the least valuable part. It's like people want to buy the other duck meat, they just chop up the necks, throw it in a bag, and they sell it like a bag of potato chips. So you got a bag. It's not refrigerated. What are the chemicals added to these duck necks that you can have it sold at room temperature? It's not in the fridge, guys. It's not. They had duck necks. I guess they're pickled. That must be what it is. Pickled duck necks. They had pigeon feet. They had different kinds of claws and snouts and tails of animals. I'm filming this. Most of my viewers are vegan. Just. And I had deadpan serious conspiracy theories. People on the internet going through this video for evidence, taking little bits and pieces, supposed like contradictions of what I said, or like little things you can notice in the background, saying, no, clearly this was actually filmed in California. Clearly, this guy's never studied Chinese. He never went to China at all. This is all a cover story. This is all a conspiracy theory. So I'm optimistic that the next generation will be raised being warned by their parents about this. Like, how can you communicate that to a child? Like, I'm serious. I have a daughter. I don't know when I'm next going to get to see her. How do you sit down with a child and explain to them, no matter how reasonable you are on the internet, other people are going to interpret what you do in an unreasonable way. And sorry, let's be real here. It's not just on the internet. It's on the internet that we see it and we hear about it. And I could now digress into stories about people making up gossip about me and people having whole fantasies about my sex life and my personal life. People I knew in real life before I was on the internet. It can happen in real life that people who know each other face to face, there's no internet involved, that they are inventing fables about other people. And I can't say it's insanity. It's an aspect of human nature that we weren't warned about by our parents, that we didn't learn about on TV, that we weren't told about by our school teachers or our church pastors. No matter how reasonable you are on YouTube, you can never expect the people in your audience to reciprocate that reasonableness, to be reasonable back. You can never earn their respect. You can, no matter how rational you are in expressing your own views or criticizing and disagreeing with the views of others, you can never expect people to be rational back. It's such a thankless task. It's such a horrible, asymmetrical, thankless task to do that again and again, and then get treated in return that same way again and again, that asymmetrical way again and again. And no matter how honest you are, so no matter how honest I am, no matter how honest Melissa is, people will literally write into you claiming that your whole life is a lie, that your whole life is a fraud, that everything you said in that video was a smokescreen. And like, either because someone else manipulated you into it or because you are manipulating someone else, that there is some ulterior motive. Now, we used to have in our culture like a concept of journalistic ethics. It's dead, it's gone, I don't miss it, I don't lament it, it's over. Okay, journalism, RIP, it's over, But like, can you imagine the way that interview would have gone? There's a journalist interviewing one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, right? If he had read the comments off of Twitter, like live while doing this interview. So it's like, oh, okay, so look, people are concerned about where the money went. You seem to have bought at least one lavish house. Some people said you bought 4 or 5 houses. I don't know what's true and being reported there. People say it's a $90 million budget. Nobody can account for what happened to the money. What's your explanation? And then she starts to give her explanation. Interestingly or not, the start of her explanation is to say that she has never received a salary from the Black Lives Matter organization. And it's like, oh, okay, so here's what they say on Twitter. Oh, you're just saying that to cover up the fact that you got money from other sources. Like, the way people behave on the internet, and it probably is how they think in real life. It probably, like off the internet, I'm not saying people are more sagacious. It probably is what's going on in their minds. Anyway, that people will just say no, and then they will concoct another more obscure, more improbable, more impossible to support theory, to justify their agenda, to justify their negative assumptions about you. Anyway. Yeah. So, sorry, it's a funny comment. So someone says, plot twist, Walmart in China has all products made in the USA. Well, that's part of why that was so funny to me, was that they were trying to prove like, oh no, like there's this product in the background and you can only get that in America. That couldn't be in a thing in China. So I don't want to redo my own jokes on this, but like, what do you really think? So what do you think? If this was filmed in America, do you think I got a step ladder and changed all the signs in Walmart to have Chinese text? And then film myself? Like management work with me? Hey, I want to do a short film in this Walmart. Do you mind if I just go around and change all the signs to be Chinese? Oh yeah, and I ordered a bunch of unique made in China products that you don't have here, and I'm going to put them on the shelf and then film myself. So, by the way, the bizarre footnote to that story is indeed that those rumors and those theories, a lot of them were linked to like the theories from more than 5 years ago now, that I was secretly working for the CIA, that like everything's a cover story, everything's a conspiracy, that I'm secretly working to destroy veganism from within, all this stuff. This theory that I don't really know Chinese, that I never really studied Chinese, that this is all a false cover story made up. That was actually revived by the incredibly stupid YouTuber Vegan Foot Soldier. All right. Now, so look, guys, I'm 42 years old. I am still unprepared to deal with this level of stupidity. I'm still getting used to it. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know about you guys. I feel like none of us are used to it. I was talking about this with Melissa yesterday. I think none of us are used to it, and none of us were prepared for it because our parents didn't teach us this. Our school teachers didn't teach us this. Even television didn't teach us this. Television, and probably your parents and probably your church pastor and probably your school teachers, they all give you this vision that the world is full of rational, highly effective, well-intentioned people. And you're not ready to deal with the morass of humanity that's totally irrational, totally mean-spirited, has no generosity, has no patience, and is willing to concoct the craziest theory about you imaginable, and disregard all the evidence you have, disregard everything you've said, and foist that and tell other people, potentially thousands of other people or millions of other people on the internet, when they have nothing to gain. They are willing to harm you when they have nothing to gain just because they enjoy harming you. And the saddest part of all is, I don't think they're even aware that they enjoy it. So stick with the example for 1 second. Guys, I do see your questions coming in. When you look at a guy like Vegan Foot Soldier, is he aware of his own malice? Like, does he actually think through consciously that it makes him happy to drag my name through the mud, that he feels better about himself by going out and publicly claiming that I've never studied Chinese? Like, one of the questions I asked him is, have you tried Googling my name plus the word Chinese? So there's quite a lot of evidence out there. And again, you get into a situation like, oh, well, that could be fake. Yeah, it could be. Like the level of effort it would take for me to have faked my involvement with the study of the Chinese language would be so much more than actually studying the Chinese language. You know what I mean? Again, if you just did a Google search, I'm making the assertion here. I don't think these people are extraordinary. The reason why this is so important to talk about is that this is the new normal. This is now ordinary. And maybe 200 years ago, maybe this was normal. You just didn't see the evidence of it because it wasn't in writing on the internet. I have read ancient literature, and I've read medieval literature, and I've read Renaissance literature. You know what? Probably you could put together some evidence about malicious gossip and false persecution and prosecution of people and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Probably there was some of this stuff going on in human nature 200 years ago too. People were put on trial for being a witch on the basis of a ridiculous story made up about their sex life, and it was the equivalent of Reddit and Facebook. It was the equivalent of YouTube comment sections and defamatory YouTube videos and the things we have to deal with today. But it's not recorded in the same way. Even in my late 30s, even in my early 40s. All right, I am still not prepared to deal with this level of stupidity. I am still not prepared to deal with this level of mean-spiritedness. The casual cruelty from people who have nothing to gain by destroying my reputation or defaming me, making criminal allegations against me, or what have you. And they're willing to do it just for the process. I was just talking to people at the university about this. I try to overcome hostility with kindness. I try again and again and again. So, again, this is kind of season 1, Isel. I'm going to talk about from here. I'm not like this anymore. I'm not. I've changed. There was a professor at the university here in Victoria. He's now retired. And this guy, I'll just say this. He did terrible, unspeakable things to me that will negatively impact me for the rest of my life. He used his authority to harm me precisely when he should have used his authority to help me, and when he was really contractually required to use his authority to help me. So I'm leaving it a little bit vague. But, I'm in a situation at the university where I need help, and on the chain of command, he's supposed to be the guy who helps me. And instead, he pulls out some real jiggery pokery. So at that time, I'd never met that professor face to face. We'd never talked. And I tell other professors, because there were several professors who really were my friends. I tell them, look, this is the situation I'm in. I don't know this guy, this other professor. He's doing all this stuff against, like, where's she going? And all the other professors told me, to paraphrase, this guy's completely insane. This guy's completely, he was an elderly professor, as mentioned, he's now retired. These other professors, they blackened this guy's character, and they had specific stories and specific examples. So if I were an easily impressionable person, this is kind of like the internet, right? This is kind of like YouTube, even though it's face-to-face, right? Let me tell you, some of these professors that worked with this guy for years, and that guy, he's really trouble. And I had different ways to escalate this conflict. And you know what I decided to do? I said, you know what? I'm going to take all of this, I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to conquer this guy with kindness. Never spoke to him, never met him face to face. We kept trying to have a meeting, and it was going to be like a mediated meeting. And it's like, he's like, okay, well, if we're going to have a meeting, I'm going to bring my lawyers, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And if you say anything that's not in this list of things to talk about, my lawyers are going to shut you down and threaten you with this or that concept. Like, it was really seriously hostile. I did not find that intimidating, because my first university degree is in political science. I'm not that easy to push around, but this was really dark. And any normal 19-year-old college kid would be totally traumatized by this forever. I was like, you know what? So, my experience with this professor is negative. I go talk to other professors. They all tell me really bad things. But you know what? I'm going to set all that aside. I'm going to go to the library and take out every book this guy ever wrote, or every article he ever wrote, and so on. I'm going to read his stuff. I'm going to get to know him positively that way. I'm going to enroll in his class. I'm going to be the best student in his class. And I'm not going to mention this conflict. I'm just going to go and be handsome and brilliant and charming, and I'm going to overcome with kindness. I went to his class, maybe not the first day, but by like the second or third day, he was so appreciative that I was there. And he told me on several occasions that it meant so much to him to have someone in the class who really was reading the books that were assigned. These were small classes. I know the other students were not reading the book, and who really cared, and who was really interested, and who asked questions that were meaningful. He was like, so I was his best student in this sense. Now, so there's more than one way to evaluate a student. I don't know if I got the highest mark in the class. It's possible. But, I was his best student. He appreciated, it lit up the class. He appreciated having someone to talk to, and someone to do the reading, and someone who cared. He was so warm. And of course, I did then go and have to meet with him in his office and talk to him. And he was crazy. All right. I really pitied him. I was nice to him. I was friendly, but he was crazy. That guy had problems. All right. And I always remember, this, I don't know, he's old school. He's an elderly guy. But, whenever he said something really honest to me, like when he took me aside to basically apologize to me, to tell me, look, that in that conflict we had in the past, that he had been wrong, he did it in the parking lot. What do you think? Think there's a listening device or something? Like there's something. I know some people are like that. So like, okay, let's go stand in the parking lot. I did get a kind of apology or a mea culpa from him, and I overcame with kindness. And I'm saying this because I recognize with all these people again and again, it's what I'm always trying to do. And I got to stop. I got to change my way of living. Even before the example of vegan foot soldier, there was vegan revolution. There was Joe Vegan. There was Veg-Ann. You got to be old to remember Veg-Ann. She was a big channel back in the day, man. There were all these people where I was so kind to them. I was so forthcoming. I was so reasonable. I was so rational. I was so giving. I was so wrong. I had real generosity of spirit. I spoke to them in a charitable way, right? And what did they do back to me? What did they show me back? Oh, this is not even mentioning Klaus from Plant-Based News. I encounter these people, and they're cruel to me. That is not an understatement. They are literally cruel to me, and they engage in even defamation campaigns against me and even harassment campaigns against me. But including Vegan Foot Soldier, including Joe Vegan, all making up stories about my financial situation and who I really am, and really crazy, over the top, and stuff about my sex life too, stuff about my personal life. Yes, sorry, both. No, it's true. They're two different guys. Sorry, Joe Vegan and Joe Best. And part of the reason it's so confusing is that later Joe Best changed his name to Joe Vegan. Vegan Cheetah, but Vegan Foot Soldier, it's like, okay, I'm going to take the time, and I'm busy. I'm busy right now. I was busy when I was living in Kunming, China. There are times in my life when I'm really busy. And you send me a totally unreasonable attack on my character that is either based upon or backed up by what some people say on the internet. And then no matter how reasonable I'm willing to be with you, you're never going to be reasonable back to me. And no matter how honest I am with you, you are going to discount what I'm saying as dishonest and concoct a theory. As little as those interactions hurt me, because they didn't hurt me emotionally. As little as those interactions hurt me, they changed my view of human nature. You get on the internet, and even if you think you're cynical, I'd been through a lot in my life. I'd been through Cambodia. I'd been through Laos. I'd been through Hong Kong. Hong Kong's a rough town too in its way, guys. You know what I mean? I'd been through so much in my life. And then you get on YouTube and you have to face up to the awesome, implacable spectacle of human stupidity as never before. And look, let's be real. When I was going to the vegetable market in Hong Kong, did I know how stupid the little old lady was who sold me the vegetables? No. Maybe she's brilliant. Maybe she's highly intellectual and a highly ethical person. You don't know. Maybe she's an incredibly immoral, incredibly stupid, incredibly mean-spirited person. You don't know. In the midst of the cacophony of the internet, and I've got to tell you, case by case, instance by instance, person by person, what you have to face up to is the way in which your own expectations have changed. And guys, you can tell me in the audience, I don't think I'm the only one. One of the things I notice is when I first got on YouTube, you could send an email to people. There used to be a messaging service within YouTube where one YouTuber could message another. They write back to you. Today, whether it's on YouTube, email, or Instagram direct message, all right, you either get no response at all, or the response is what is this about? There's this really guarded response. And, it's not any one thing. I think each and every one of these people has been through a similar sequence of defamatory events where, they were generous and open and warm and honest with somebody on the internet. And then what did they get in return? And when you have the experience of no matter how much kindness I show you, you're never going to reciprocate with that basic effort to be reasonable. You're never going to be charitable in your questions. Charitable doesn't mean you assume the best about me. It doesn't mean you assume I'm an angel, but let's really think about what being charitable means. To question somebody with charitable assumptions, or even to criticize them with charitable assumptions. That's a virtue we didn't have to nail down before. Maybe because none of us were really being honest with ourselves about how dark human nature really is.